Hi everyone and welcome to Parenting Potter, the series where I talk about the parental relationships and the parental figures in the Harry Potter series. This is a series that I started last year, but I went on quite a significant hiatus from the series when I was in my final year of university, and I kept saying I'll bring the series back when I'm less busy, but I have finally given myself the kick up the bum to get back into this series. I will leave the previous 4 episodes linked down below. They are by no means a prerequisite to watching this episode. You can watch it without watching the other ones, but I recommend that you do. I may reference certain things that I talked about in previous episodes, but as I said, they are by no means a prerequisite. The first episode was about the effect of the absence of Harry's birth parents. The second episode was the effect of his adoptive parents, the Dursleys. The third episode was about father figures in Sirius Black and Remus Lupin, and the fourth episode was on a mother figure, Molly Weasley. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about one of the characters that I am most fond of, and that is Rubeus Hagrid, who I believe is one of the series' best paternal figures, but also one of the series' best maternal figures. We'll get to that. Essentially, my thesis for this episode is that Hagrid challenges stereotypical roles in the family, and is a great example of a modern father figure. And I am going to talk briefly about what a father figure is in children's literature, but also in the Harry Potter series. A lot of this stuff may be familiar if you did watch the episodes that I did on Sirius and Remus. So with the Harry Potter series, the author is breaking with tradition slightly. She's given the male parental figures a central position in the narrative, but also a counselling function which is essential to Harry Potter's endeavours. JK Rowling does not portray father figures how they are typically portrayed in children's literature. In children's literature, father figures are most often portrayed as either absent or feared, or both. In many traditional children's stories, fathers are absent, be it they're actually not present in the home, they work someplace else, or they have a place within the home that the child is not allowed to enter, a study for instance. Because of this separation, the father seems to have little influence over the children, who instead of staying protected in the family home, leave and go off and have their own adventures. In the Harry Potter series, despite the fact that James Potter, Harry's biological father, is of course absent through death, Harry's surrogate fathers all come into close contact with the boy. And it's notable especially with Hagrid and Sirius that they allow Harry into their home. This is particularly significant for Hagrid. So aside from them having an actual physical presence in Harry's life, the surrogate fathers also influence his development, as each of them teaches the boy what he knows. But this is more in line with some of the functionality of the father figure in traditional children's literature, where the majority of information about the outside world is passed to the child through the father. And of course with Hagrid we see this right at the beginning of the Philosopher's Stone. He is immediately one of Harry's most important friends and caregivers. Despite his enormous figure and wild looks, he is incredibly caring and parent-like. He leads Harry through his first steps into the magical world. He gives him the necessary basic information that he needs to grow up in this fantastic and confusing society. He's the one that tells him what actually happened to Lily and James Potter. He tells him about Hogwarts and its teachers. So we've just discussed Hagrid as a father figure, but what about him as a mother figure? Now here I want to talk a little bit about food and domesticity. Food does not the mother make, but in the Harry Potter series, food is often used as a marker for maternal care. I'm sure a few examples spring to mind there. And if we put the Harry Potter series in the context in which it is set, so 1990s Britain, particularly in the case of working class women, things like cooking and caregiving are kind of inseparable from a woman's expected role in Western domestic economy, as well as being involved in her children's diets. The mother is also concerned with her children's general well-being, trying to keep them healthy and out of danger. This is often in contrast to the father figures. Think about Sirius encouraging Harry to go off and do dangerous things like join the Order, and Molly Weasley being dead set against it. Think about Albus Dumbledore and Severus Snape being just chill with Harry Potter entering the Triwizard Tournament to see how events unfold, and Minerva McGonagall thinking this is fucking ridiculous. So we see these traits embodied in a number of female characters. Add Hermione into the mix as well there, to be honest. But also by the male Rubeus Hagrid. In Hagrid we find, instead of aggression or brutality, concern, caring and nurturing. This is repeatedly feminized in the narrative. Rubeus Hagrid does not give a fuck about your gender norms. He has a pink umbrella, he wears a flower. He repeatedly appears tending to injured magical creatures and delivering young young witches and wizards to the magical world, Hagrid constantly and willingly takes on the role of mother towards his pets. Of course, we have instances like Norbert, the baby dragon that he adopts. "I've decided to call him Norbert," said Hagrid, looking at the dragon with misty eyes. "He really knows me now. Watch. Norbert, Norbert, where's Mummy?" We also see this trait displayed in another character in the Harry Potter canon who cares for magical creatures. Remember the instances in the Fantastic Beasts film where Newt Scamander refers to himself as Mummy as well. So there's a deliberate association between a mother and a caregiver. What do you guys think about that? Does it feed into a sort of essentialism? Why can't they just refer to themselves as fathers? And remember, Fantastic Beasts is set even further in the past than the main series of 7 books. The characters seem to be so wrapped up in these fixed and rigid gender roles that they're trying to break out of, or they at least want to break out of, be it consciously or subconsciously. I also want to examine the first appearance of Hagrid. He scares the Dursleys as a giant of a man standing in the doorway. His face was almost completely hidden by a long, shaggy mane of hair and a wild, tangled beard, but you could make out his eyes, glinting like black beetles under all the hair. Yet immediately Hagrid takes out a number of pieces of paraphernalia that are associated with domesticity. Pans, matchboxes, sausages to eat. And of course, a homemade birthday cake with pink icing. That's not to say that these are inherently feminine tasks, but the only other time we see people cooking are female characters. So Hagrid is subverting the idea of a father figure in terms of the gendered roles that he performs. But he also subverts the idea of the family in other ways. There are another of norms that Hagrid challenges. Even though his love of animals that are often perceived as dangerous is often ridiculed, the story also stresses how animals are not always inherently dangerous, simply because the Ministry of Magic says so. In this, Hagrid is one of the only characters in the series who openly defies the traditional stigmatization of creatures who are different. You can also pull that back to perceptions of gender. Hagrid, as a half-born giant himself, is well aware of the wizardly obsession with lineage that has a huge emphasis on having a pure blood family. At the same time, however, he brings his half-brother Grawp back to Hogwarts so he can take care of him. Hagrid embraces his giant half-brother as part of his family, and shows how family within the Harry Potter series is not always stereotypical and regressive. I've not spoken a huge amount about how Hagrid's relationship towards Harry functions, but I think what I have touched on are the most interesting aspects of Hagrid's role as a parental figure. So they are all the things I'm going to talk about in this episode of Parenting Potter. Do let me know down below what you thought. Are you glad that the series is back? Because I know I am. My dear friend Katie from Books and Things has done some videos with her boyfriend Nick recently about gender in the Harry Potter series, and I will leave those linked down below if you want to check those out and you haven't already. If you enjoyed this, then I think you'll very much enjoy that. Anyways, if you have any thoughts on any of the things that I've said in this video, do be sure to leave a comment down below. I think in the next episode of Parenting Potter, I'm going to be talking about Severus Snape, so do keep your eyes peeled for that one. I'm not going to make any promises about when it's going to drop, but there will not be as long of a gap between episodes from now on. So yeah, that's all from me for now, and I will talk to you guys in my next video.